What's up, everyone? Welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Chris. So it's time for my reading wrap up for the month of July. So this month I had got through 9 books, 1 physical book out of the 9, 1 is physical, and there were 2 DNFs. Overall, it was a good month, aside from the 2 DNFs. And yeah, so I'm really pleased. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to talk about the first book that I read for July. Okay, so the month of July is starting out with a bang. No pun intended. Anyway, I'm talking about some books here that I've been able to read over this long holiday weekend that we have. And the first one up is End of Watch by Stephen King. This is the 3rd book in the Bill Hodges trilogy. First one was Mr. Mercedes, followed up by Finders Keepers, and then End of Watch. Now, I don't want to can't talk about it too much because it's the conclusion of the trilogy. But Mr. Mercedes started off with Brady Hartsfield. He was a psychopath, and he was one sick person. Oh my God. Written like nobody else could write a psycho person like Stephen King. Demented. And Brady Hartsfield mowed down a crowd of people at a job fair in a Mercedes, which is how he got his name, Mr. Mercedes. Bill Hodges was, at that time, he was on the case and retired and never did solve the case. And he was brought back in because Brady started sending him letters. Then we moved into Finders Keepers. Finders Keepers, like I said in my last review of that book, it was okay. It was like a filler. I found that although it still kept in line somewhat with the Mr. Mercedes issue or tragedy that happened in the first book, the characters carried over into this. There was the characters that carried into this, the second book, were people who were affected by the incident at the job fair in the first book. However, it just it was a filler. It really didn't connect well to me with the Mr. Mercedes, moving through, because now we ended with this one, End of Watch. This went back to more centering on Brady Hartsfield and the Mr. Mercedes himself. I enjoyed the book. I'm giving it 4.5 stars. Again, all our characters were there. We had Bill Hodges, we had Holly, we had Pete, Jerome, and Barbara. These are all people from the first book. And he did a fantastic job of bringing the series to a final closure. Characters are written exceptionally well. There is a bit of, I want to say, not supernatural, but, Stephen King always puts a little weird stuff in there, right? A little bit of mind stuff and mind control, and it was good. Very good. Like I said, I can't, because we're tying up the series. I can't speak too much on it because there's 2 books prior to it. And if you haven't read them, then I'm gonna spoil the last book. It was good. It was endearing, and you always hate to see when something ends, you know, when a author brings their series to an end. And that's why I'm so thankful that he carried on the series with Holly. And because she's a fantastic character. And Will Patton, who narrated all 3 of these books, in fact, I think he did The Stand too, if I'm not mistaken. He did a lot of his books. I love that narrator. He's good. He's just, yeah. He makes the stories come to life and the characters. He really, really does. Anyway, so that's End of Watch, the final book in the Bill Hodges trilogy from Stephen King. Okay, the next book, meh, it was okay. That was, what is wrong with me? What Have You Done by Shari Lebena. Now, this book grabbed me at the beginning. It really did. It pulled me in. I was like, oh, I'm liking this one. Basically, this is a story of... Okay, sorry about that little bit of a blip here. I was looking down at my notes and I got confused because they're jumbled all over. I scratched all these thoughts that I was having on these books and I kind of got lost in mine. Anyway, let's backtrack. What Have You Done by Shari Lebena. Book was fast-paced. I could say that. It's more of a popcorn thriller. In the beginning of the book, I was pulled in. And then it just kind of, I don't know, it just became disjointed for me. Basically, the beginning of the story, it starts out with Diana Brewer. I wrote her name down here somewhere. Yeah, Diana Brewer. She's murdered. I'm not giving anything away. This is the very beginning of the book. There's a farmland, the farmer in his land, he sees all these vultures circling out in his field. And he starts to go out there to see, he thought maybe it was a deer or something. And he goes out there and he discovers it's the body of a young girl. And the story carries on, and it's told by multiple characters, different characters telling the story. And for me, it just became disjointed, So you kind of wonder, oh, it was this person, because I will give it that it was constantly changing. Like every so many pages, you were like, you thought you had it, and then no, it has to be this person. It was one of those type of things. But yeah, for me, I like to see more of a singular point of view or a singular storyteller. Even two, this was multiple. There were a lot of people involved. The detectives are talking, and you've got Diana's boyfriend, Cameron, her best friend, Mo, and Evan, the mom, the other moms, all the people in the community, because they live in this sleepy town where nothing ever happens. And now you've got this gruesome murder. And you try to carry through, you're trying to follow these different people who are all talking and telling their thoughts and, what they were doing. And I just didn't like the flow. It was an okay book. Definitely, it's a fast-paced book. Like I said, it's more of a popcorn thriller. For me, the flow was off on it. I didn't like all the different people. I prefer one or two people narrating or telling the story. And there was just too many people. I felt like there was too many things going on, and too many different storylines, and they just didn't mesh. Things did. just didn't mesh well for me. So that being said, I'm giving this book 3 stars. But let's talk about this other book that I read. You guys, this one wrecked me, but in a good way. This was recommended to me by one of my viewers, Amy. Amy, if you're watching, thank you for recommending In an Instant by, oh my God, I forgot her name. Holy crap. Did I write her name down? I didn't write her name down. Hold on. I'm going to get her name. Good Lord. Old brain. Suzzanne Redfearn. Okay. This book, I got so many notes written here. Oh, God. Please, if you've read this book, let me know. And again, Amy, thank you so much for this book, because I live for books like this. Just like I had one last month, this is another one. So basically it starts out with a family, and they are taking a skiing trip up in the mountains. And they're in a van with 10 passengers. And I'm not giving anything away here. Don't think I'm giving the whole story away. I'm not giving the story away. This is on the back of the cover. You can read it yourself. Tragic accident happens, and life as they knew it changed in an instant. Pretty much that's what it is. And what is really spectacular about this book is it is told through the eyes of Finn Miller. She's 16 years old, and she is dead. And she is telling the story through her eyes and her witness of everything that's taking place with her family and her friends. Yeah, this is just, I can't even. This one will give you I don't want to use the word food for thought. It just gives you the time to reflect on life and its fragility. This one made me want to hug my grandkids and hold them close. It was beautifully written. It's about love, friendship, loss, forgiveness. And there's a quote in here. I like this quote. And that quote is, sometimes it's not the moment that defines you, but what you do after. I love that quote. It shows the importance of kindness and forgiveness and second chances. You guys, this book is just brilliant. It was brilliant. I think, we all go through loss in our life, and we go through loss on different levels, whether it be our parents, a family member, a best friend, a spouse, a loved one, a child. And it makes you think about death and the changes that, go along with it. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not in all the sorrow in this book, there is hope, there's lightheartedness, there is, it's more than just loss and devastation. This is a book that's written of in the wake of tragedy and a horrific accident, that life goes on and life could still be beautiful and fulfilling. And yeah, this one hit home for me. Having dealt with grief on a, horrifying scale, because I did lose my daughter, so I was able to really reflect and relate to these characters, and this was beautiful. This book was just beautiful. The structure of the book was hauntingly beautiful. It was like, watching a movie in like a slow motion, and the character of Finn telling the story and speaking on her being above everything, watching everything unfold, the struggle to survive the accident, to come out to be rescued, and the aftermath of that, and how they moving, each individual character was moving forward in their life. And it was just, you guys, this book really, I urge you to just please check this one out. Again, it's called In an Instant by Suzzanne Redfearn. Yeah, this was a good one. And like I said, I strive to find these books that will remain with me. They'll remain in my heart, in my head, the people. Yeah, this is what I look for when I'm looking for a book. I want those ones that really hit that high note. And this one just blew the roof off. I mean, this was fantastic. Fantastic story. I want to check out some other things she has written. And this one hit home. This one really hit home for me in more ways than one. So, yeah. All right. Let's move on to something maybe a little bit less, dramatic. Okay, I got another fun one. This one is Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. You know me, I love a good thriller with a good twist. That just really makes me happy. And this one had a nice twist in it. Basically, this book is about, we're following Amber. And Amber is in a coma. And while she's in this coma, she's aware of things that are going on around her. And she's, hears people talking and all these things. And so it's kind of like 3 timelines. There's back in her history, she's thinking all these things as she's, talking you through the story. It goes back in her history when she's a child. Then it flash forwards to the week leading up to when she ended up in the hospital, and currently while she's in the hospital telling you all these things. So not a spoiler there. It starts out, she's in a coma, and it just goes back to, she doesn't know why she's in a coma. She doesn't know, she doesn't even know why she's there, or nothing. She knows nothing. So yeah, so it's her, Amber, her sister, Claire, and her husband, Paul. And then there's like some work stuff going on there. And, so she's recapping that week before she ended up in the hospital. You guys, this one was good. You know, and you think to yourself when you're reading something like this, wow, you know, if people are in a coma, can they hear? Are they responsive? And, you know, do they know what's going on? So I enjoyed this book. It was good. I like the twist in it. And you know what? I'm really liking Alice Feeney's books. So far, every one that I've read, I've really loved. So I'm going to keep reading her as I move forward because yeah, I'm really enjoying her work. So anyway, that is, look at me, forgot the name already. What? Really? Sometimes I Lie. That's it. Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. Check it out. I'm giving this one, I'm going to give it a good solid 4 stars. I thought it was great, twisty, dark. And I like that whole concept of telling the story while you're from the character who's in a coma. So yeah, that was good. So let me know. Have you read it? What did you think about it? And sound like something you might want to pick up? All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next read. All right, so this next author came recommended to me by my good friend Stephanie from Steph Loves Life. And the author is Darcy Coates. And the book I chose was A Ghost Camera. Now, this story is following a woman. Her name is Janine. And she finds a Polaroid camera. She snaps a picture. And when she's looking a little closer at the picture, she sees that what looks to be like a ghost in the camera. So she's goes to her friend Bree, you know, Bree, can you look at this? Do you see anything here? Yada, yada. And, you know, so her friend sees it as well. So the more pictures she snaps, the closer these ghosts are getting to her. And we're just going to leave it there. I will just further on talk about what I did like. I did like the spookiness. I got spookiness from it. I got atmosphere from it. I thought it was well written. And yeah, I like this story. I think I will definitely, most definitely pick up other books by this author. She was able to really, what I liked was it wasn't silly and stupid. Like the dialogue, like, you know, these girls were like, they were frightened. As well, they should have been, right? You got ghosts coming after you. It's scary. Unlike some of these other books I was reading, people making jokes, and I'm like, wait a minute, the monster's gonna eat your ass, and you're making jokes. But anyway, I did. I liked this. It was spooky. It was a little haunting, and just a nice spooky vibe. Not horrifying in any way, but it was spooky and creepy. Very creepy. I got the creeps. What I didn't like and I didn't realize is it was a short story. It wasn't a novel. I didn't realize by looking at the book and basically reading the synopsis on it, didn't say that it was one of many short stories in the book. I don't like short stories. I like to be captivated and immersed, and you know, I like the development of characters and the building of atmospheres, atmosphere. You know, if need be, I like sense of place, sense of time. I like everything that a novel can give. I'm not a short story person. So that was on me. I didn't bother listening to the other stories because I was like, I just wanted to read Ghost Camera. So going forward, she's got many other novels out there. I'm going to choose one and at some point read another one of her stories because I did enjoy it. I did. I liked her writing, and I liked the fact that she kind of gave me the creeps without being terrified. Not that I've been terrified yet, but that's my fears. I will read a book and be terrified by it and I won't be able to sleep at night. But, however, speaking to this story only, Ghost Camera, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good story, and yeah, well written, and I'm giving it 3.5 stars. Taking off the half a star because I wanted a longer book, but that's okay. So I enjoyed it, and I found a new author that I seem to enjoy at the moment. All right, so let's go ahead and roll on to the next book that I read, and I'm excited about this one. All right, so in this next segment, I'm actually going to be speaking to 4 books that I read. Normally, I jump on here and I do a quick review of a book once I finish it, just so that it's fresh and current. Life's been busy, so here we are 4 books later. And so I did write some notes down just to refresh my memory on the story and certain points maybe that I wanted to touch on. Anyway, first one we're going to talk about is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I quite enjoyed this book. I really did. Basically, it is about a girl, Addie LaRue, and she's a young girl, and she longs to be free, experience life, see the world outside of the small village she lives in France. Her father is, I think he was like a carpenter, or he made things out of wood. And so they had like a very, very simple life. Well, she wanted to explore and see the world and all the things. And so as a young girl, she starts speaking to this woman, Estelle, who lives in the village as well. And the mother doesn't like her. She calls her a witch because Estelle is more of like a free-spirited type person. And so she would have conversations with her, and she would, talk about praying. And she's grown up in a very religious family, and Estelle is more, like I said, a free spirit, talking about praying to the gods. And one of the things that is repeated in the book is, I got to read it, never pray to the gods that answer after dark. So some years go on, and she keeps putting these prayers out there, and for, a blessed, beautiful life, and, freedom, and to do all the things that she wants to do. And we're talking 1714 here. Women didn't really have, access to, education and travel and all the things. Anyway, as the story progresses and she gets a little older, she's 23, and a certain life event is starting to happen, and she's praying desperately, desperately, desperately. And she didn't realize that the sun had gone down, and lo and behold, here comes a god from the dark side. And she basically sells her soul for immortality and freedom. But it came with a price, because no one will ever remember her. She's unable to speak her name. When she meets people, she has to navigate life, learning how to survive, because anybody she meets face to face, the minute the door closes, she becomes invisible, like they've never met before. So she can't build any relationships. She can't have a job, or she's not allowed to acquire things, she could steal. So she makes her way through 300 years without putting any mark on her existence. And one day she comes across a young man who works in a bookstore, and he remembers her name and her face. So the story really starts to pick up from there. And like I said, it goes back and forth between the past, things that have happened, which she's gone through up to the point she's at now, and the Dark Lord, or God, also makes regular appearances to her, and there's, back and forth conflict there. It is a bit of a romance. It's whimsical, fantasy. I enjoyed the book. I thought it was really good. It was very entertaining and it held my interest. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it was just a different genre from what I'm used to reading, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I gave it 5 stars. And that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. All right, so after that, I read Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. This one was okay. I wish, as I was listening to the book, I was making mental notes of myself of things that just they didn't vibe. But I can't remember what they were now. And I remember saying to myself, oh yeah, see, I got to talk about that. And, but anyway, I've since forgotten. Anyway, Maggie Holt. She has a history of growing up in a haunted house. Now, that is through a story a book that her father had written. So her father was a writer, and back when Maggie was a very young girl, they had her mom and her dad they had purchased a home, a Victorian home. It's called Bainbury Manor, and it had a past, a sinister past. Well, the home was super, super cheap. They were kind of in a position where they couldn't really afford anything really expensive, so they were very enamored with this big, beautiful home. And so they bought it, even though there's this history there and kind of like got the woo-woo vibes on it. Well, things start to happen and creepy things in the house. And so the father ends up writing a book about this. And the story is told from Maggie's point of view and excerpts from the father's novel that he wrote about it. Now, the issue is Maggie never believed the story. Now, she was too young to remember. So she felt all her life was a lie, and she was exposed to, her life being like a circus and in the public eye. And she didn't like that. And she resented her parents for not telling her the truth, even though they say that was the truth. So she inherits the home after her father passes, and against her mother's wishes, she goes back to the house and decides she's going to renovate it and sell it. Well, when she gets there, again, weird things happen, but she dismisses them. And yeah, so the story kind of plays out there. Then other secrets start to unfold, and I don't want to tell you much more than that. Anyway, I gave the book 3.5 stars. It held my interest. It was okay. I'm trying to see if there's anything I wrote here that's, it'll keep you questioning. You yourself as the reader, like, did it happen or didn't it? So that was kind of nice. That little bit of like, I don't know. But all in all, it was just okay. It was a good book. It didn't knock my socks off. Like I said, 3.5 stars. It was well written. It had an interesting storyline. But I do recall certain things in the book as I was reading it. I was just kind of like, I don't know. But I don't remember exactly what they were because I didn't have the time to talk about it right after I read it. So anyway, that's Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. Okay, so the next one I read was Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. I did give it 3.5 stars. Because it was entertaining. It had a good storyline and well written, all the things. The characters were written pretty well. Different variety of characters. Basically what this book was about is it's 1970. It's in St. Augustine, Florida. There is a home down there. What was the name of the home? Oh, Wellwood House. It's for girls that have gotten themselves in a bit of trouble, pregnant. So basically the story's telling that back in 1970, it was so very shameful to be pregnant and not married. And so we're following Fern. That's not her real name. Fern is a given name by the house because none of the girls in the house can use their real names. They have to keep, they're not allowed to talk about their private lives and home and school and all that, or where they actually live. Those are the house rules because they're trying just to keep things anonymous. And the woman who runs the house feels she is doing these girls a great service because they're able to do all this in private, have their babies, they get put up for adoption, and they go back to living their life as usual, but prior to pregnancy. Now, Fern is 15 years old, and her parents drove her, and I think she was from Alabama, and her parents drove her down to this home for wayward girls. And there's quite a few girls in the home, but the ones that are part of the story, there's Rose, Holly, and Zinnia. Rose is kind of like a hippie, and Zinnia is a very talented, gifted musician, and she thinks she's going to have her baby and go off with the baby's father and get married. And then Holly is kind of like mute, doesn't talk, and at one point you really don't know who got her pregnant. So, strict house rules. All these girls are unhappy. They're all very young, 15 and under. And every couple weeks, a library van comes, a book van. And Fern goes to look for a book, and the very eccentric librarian gives her this book on witchcraft. And, and everything comes with a price. So the girls learned the power of this book and things that it can do. And then it kind of takes off from there and gets a little bit spooky. Should we say spooky? It was a good book. Again, I gave this one 3.5 stars. It felt a little YA to me, and I'm not into young adult fiction. And this one felt a little young adult to me. Maybe it is. I don't know. I didn't see that it said it was a young adult book, but it felt like a young adult book. But it was well written. The plot line and all that, but I don't know if Grady Hendrix is for me, or maybe I just chose the wrong book. I know he's got another book, How to Sell a Haunted House is one. Maybe I might look at that one. We'll see. But overall, it was decent. Like I said, 3.5 stars, and that is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. Okay, now so this next book. This is what I really want to talk about. Because, yeah. Well, Addie LaRue, see, but that was 3 books ago. So I was very excited about it, but I just didn't do my review on it right after I read it. But I love that book. I thought it was excellent. But this is the one that's taken the top spot now. And that is, and I read it, physical book, Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent. You guys, this was such a good book. It really was. All right. So, I can tell you this right off the bat, how this starts. Sally Diamond is a bit strange and unusual, but you fall in love with her. You really do. Um, I I love her character. I loved her. So basically, the book starts out. She is in her mid 40s, and or early, very early 40s, and she lives with her dad. Her mom died when she was about 18, and she has always lived a very sheltered life because Sally is very quirky. You would almost think she has autism, but she doesn't. So she is socially inept and, doesn't like talking to people, so much so she pretends she's deaf so that she doesn't have to speak to anybody. So her mom passes away and she spends the rest of her years, with her dad. And it's just her and him, and she stays home where she likes to be and all the things. Well, and as her father's getting older, now I believe this is even on the book cover. It's right in the beginning of the book, so I'm not giving anything away here. She says, the father says to her all the time, when I'm, oh, it's based in Ireland. These are Irish characters. He says, when I go, just put me out with the trash. Well, when he went, that's exactly what she did. She put him in the trash and burned him. And because that's what they did with the trash, they used to burn it. So she bundled him up and took him out to the trash and burned him. Well, because she takes everything very literal. If you tell her, not knowing that it was in jest. So this opens up a whole new can of worms because she tells somebody, how's your dad? Oh, he's dead. He died. And, is there going to be service? She says, no. She says, I burned him. He told me to do that. It opens up a whole can of worms. But what happens is you start to find out exactly why Sally is the way she is. Very just, yeah. I mean, some of the things she says to people, and it's such a good book. Really. I absolutely love Sally. I love her. She was just, yeah. Guys, this is a good book. It's a mystery. It's a little bit of a thriller, but it's also light, as well as being a very dark book. There's a lot of dark here as well. There's history and past here that is dark. So it's light. I know it's an oxymoron. There's lightness in the book. By the way, because of her quirkiness, that sometimes you chuckle a little bit. However, the premise behind the book, the theme, is very dark, but very good. Really, really good book. I highly recommend this book. Now, you would think by the way I'm talking about it and the smile on my face that I would have given it 5 stars. I did not give it 5 stars. I gave it 4.5. And my reason for giving it 4.5 was the ending. I felt that the ending was, I felt it was rushed and tried to be tied up into a neat bow, and it wasn't. I thought, I personally didn't like the ending. I thought it was just wrapped up too quickly, and it was like try to wrap it up into that neat bow, and it didn't do that. It just kind of left it for me, and I was just like, oh well, okay. But overall, that's the only reason I took that half star off. If I had enjoyed the ending more, it would have been a 5-star read for me, because all the way up to that, it was 5 stars. And I knew it as I was reading it. I'm like, this is a great book. It's 5 stars. This is a fantastic book. Love, love, love this book. I want to check out more by this author. I really enjoyed it. So let me know. Have you read Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent? What did you think? Have you read any of the other books I talked about? Curious. Let me know. Or does this sound like something you might pick up? Good book, you guys. Good book. Anyway, I am in the middle of, not even in the middle, I did start a ginormous book. It's 48 hours, the book, in length. So I'm not going to tell you what it is. You could probably guess by the length of who it is, but I'm not saying what it is. I did so because it became available because I had it on my requests to borrow from Libby, and it became available, and I'm like, oh, I better grab it. Let me grab it now. So I did. And today is the 26th of July. I just started it today. I do not know if I'm going to be able to finish this book before the end of the month. We shall see. So I may be back with another review, or I may be back with a wrap up of the month. So we'll just leave it at that. So anyway, let's go on to this next segment and see what it will be. All right, let's talk about DNFs. I had 2 this month. One of them may be a surprise, but first one, probably not. The first book that I did not finish was A Fantastic Land by Mike Bachoven. Yeah, this wasn't from me. It is a story about a 1970s theme park in Florida near the coast that was like a rival to Disney World. And a lot of the people that work there are college students on summer break. And a big storm of the century hurricane hits the coast of Florida and pretty much destroys the theme park. Well, not everybody was gone. Well, most of the workers were still there. Not everybody evacuated. And most of them are teenagers, late teens, because they're like college students. And the story is told through like an investigative type story that's being told about the incident. So this is kind of like a modern day Lord of the Flies story. I'm just trying to recall the parts that I did read. It just wasn't for me. So basically what happens is different groups start forming. Like you got the freaks and they have the shop girls, the moles, who else? The pirates. They start forming their own little tribes. Well, it got out of hand. I mean, they were like fighting and killing for food, medicine, and dominance, and it was just weird. I found it weird because, okay, it was a hurricane, you're flooded, and then really, it's taking this long for a rescue? I mean, I know it's just a story, but still. And it's told through interviews with the people that were there. I like that kind of that style, like with how the author took that view of writing this book. What's that word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word. But yeah, I thought that was pretty cool to tell a story like from after the fact, everything's over, and then you've got the people that were there talking about things that happened and things that went on. I did like that aspect of it, but I just couldn't get through it. Maybe because, again, it was all a bunch of teenage kids. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. I wasn't vibing with it. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to invest any more time into this. I probably got through about 30% of the book. And if that. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to stop. So that's Fantastic Land by Mike Bakoven. All right. The next one that I DNF'd, and it probably wouldn't have if now Fantastic Land I had purchased. I bought that quite a long time ago. It was on sale or something. But this next book, I got it through the library and I thought, okay, so I didn't have to pay for it. And that was With a Vengeance by Riley Sager. Another one. I wasn't feeling it. The story wasn't grabbing me. Not to say that I may not try to read it again at a later date. It may have just been my mood and what I was wanting to listen to, and it wasn't grabbing me. Generally, for the most part, I like Riley Sager. I think he writes good stories, so I may or may not at some point ever try to read it again. What I can tell you about the book is it's about a woman. Her name is, I wrote it down, Anna Matheson, and she gathers 6 people that she believes destroyed her family and invited them on this train that's going to, I think it was Chicago or something. I don't know. It's like 1942. So it's one of when trains were like very luxurious. So it's a luxurious train, kind of got Agatha Christie vibes too on it. And so she invites these 6 people. And her intent was that she was going to confront them and make them fess up to their crimes and hand them over to the police. Well, somebody gets murdered and she didn't do it. And eventually and then this, I'm going off synopsis, not because I read this. Basically, so somebody on the train has another motive and they're killing people, and she needs to now try to protect the people that she invited on this train, risking herself so that no more people get killed, and find out who it is that's killing these people. Anyway, it wasn't grabbing me. And I had listened long enough that I knew if I'm not grabbed yet by this story, then I'm not going to be. So I decided to DNF it. There was no loss to me financially. It was free. So that's what I did. Anyway, so those are my books for the month of July. Overall, I think it was a good month. It's going to be hard for me to pick what my favorite was for this month. I haven't decided yet. I want to sit back and look at everything again, like what I read and how I felt. And so I'm not sure who's going to take the spotlight for July. Anyway, so thank you for watching, and let me know if you have read any of these books, if any of these books sound enticing to you. And yeah, so I'm like totally out of it because I'm trying to finish this video and I stop in mid-sentence. This is crazy. I'm going to have to edit this out. Please comment, like, and subscribe. It helps my channel grow. And you all have a great day, great week, weeknight, weekend, whenever you happen to be watching. And we will chat again real soon. Bye-bye.